there's a version of the ENTJ that most people don't talk about. Not the cold, domineering commander, but the one who walks into a room, reads every person in it within minutes, knows exactly what to say to get the outcome they need, and does it all while sounding genuinely intelligent and engaging. That's the ENTJ, with air sign energy. And it's one of the most socially powerful combinations I've looked at in this entire series. I'm Jhonna. This is Jhonna Unfiltered. We're continuing the ENTJ Zodiac series, and today we're covering the air signs. That's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Quick disclaimer before we start. I don't treat zodiac signs or personality types as rigid definitions of anyone. These are tools for reflection, not labels. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. I'm also not a psychologist or astrologer, just someone who finds these patterns genuinely worth exploring. Let me explain both sides of this combination before we look at how they interact. ENTJ stands for extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and judging. The defining quality of this type is strategic leadership. They see what needs to be done, they figure out the most efficient way to get there, and they mobilize people and resources toward that outcome. They're direct, competitive, and highly goal-oriented. They tend to be ahead of most people in a conversation because their brain is always working several steps further down the line. They have very little patience for incompetence, and they tend to project a level of confidence and authority that other people either find inspiring or find intimidating. Now the air signs. In astrology, the three air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. What they share is an orientation toward ideas, communication, and intellectual connection. Air energy is quick. It moves between concepts easily, finds patterns and connections, and expresses itself through language. Air signs tend to be socially aware in an intellectual rather than emotional sense. They understand how communication works, how perception is shaped, and how ideas spread through networks of people. When ENTJ meets air sign energy, the strategic drive gets paired with genuine social intelligence and verbal power. The result is what I'd call the social architect. Not just a leader who gets things done, a leader who shapes how people think, how systems are organized, and how ideas move through communities. Let me break this down through each air sign separately, because while they all share the air element, they express it differently. Starting with Gemini. Gemini covers people born roughly between late May and late June. It's associated with mental speed, curiosity, adaptability, and an exceptional ability to communicate across different contexts and audiences. Gemini energy thinks fast, switches topics fast, and can explain complex things in multiple different ways depending on who's listening. It's also associated with versatility and a genuine love of information in all its forms. The ENTJ Gemini is probably the fastest thinking and most verbally dominant version of this type. The ENTJ's strategic intelligence gets paired with Gemini's rapid-fire communication ability and adaptability. This is the combination that walks into a negotiation having already anticipated 15 different directions the conversation might go and prepared for all of them. They can explain the same concept to a technical expert and to a complete beginner, and have both people feel genuinely understood. They're also the most comfortable with multitasking of any ENTJ combination. Gemini energy doesn't mind managing multiple streams of information simultaneously. And the ENTJ's organizational capacity means that those streams get handled systematically rather than just chaotically. The result is someone who can run several projects at once without losing the thread of any of them, which is a genuinely useful quality in leadership and in complex work environments. The challenge for this combination is mental restlessness. Gemini doesn't naturally want to stay with one thing long enough to get bored. And in a type that's already impatient with slow progress, that restlessness can compound into a pattern of moving to the next thing before the current one is fully finished. They may start initiatives with enormous energy and sophistication, and then find it hard to maintain the same level of engagement through the more routine phases of execution. There's also a verbal risk worth acknowledging. The combination of ENTJ's confidence and Gemini's persuasive ability makes this combination very effective at arguing any position convincingly. When that skill is in service of genuine truth and useful outcomes, it's remarkable. When it isn't, it can slide into a kind of manipulation through language that the person may not even fully recognize they're doing. In relationships, the ENTJ Gemini is stimulating and engaging. Conversations are genuinely interesting. They're curious about the other person in a real way. But they can struggle with emotional consistency because Gemini energy can shift mood and focus quickly, and the ENTJ's low tolerance for repetitive emotional patterns can make sustained emotional support feel tedious. They need a partner who can keep up intellectually and who doesn't require constant emotional reassurance. Now, let's talk about Libra. Libra covers people born roughly between late September and late October. It's associated with diplomacy, balance, social awareness, and a strong sense of fairness. Libra energy understands how things look from the outside. It's attentive to how decisions affect relationships and social dynamics. And it has a natural aesthetic and social polish that makes it effective in public-facing roles. The ENTJ Libra is the most socially refined and diplomatically capable version of this combination. The ENTJ's strategic command gets paired with Libra's awareness of social harmony, perception management, and the art of making things look and feel balanced even when they're actually being very carefully directed. This is the combination that gets what they want in a negotiation while making everyone in the room feel like the outcome was collaborative and fair. The iron in the velvet glove, as some people describe it. This version also tends to be the most concerned with how they're perceived. Not in a shallow way, but in a strategic way. They understand that reputation matters, that how they present themselves affects what they can accomplish, and they invest in that presentation deliberately. They tend to be well-dressed, well-spoken, and careful about their professional image in ways that other ENTJ combinations might not prioritize as consciously. The challenge for this combination is the tension between the Libra desire for balance and harmony and the ENTJ's willingness to make hard, sometimes uncomfortable decisions. When those two impulses conflict, which they sometimes do, the indecision that results can frustrate the ENTJ's usual decisiveness. They may spend more time than they'd like considering how a decision will land socially before they feel comfortable moving forward with it. They can also become overly focused on status and appearances in ways that drift from genuine purpose. The Libra concern with image, amplified by the ENTJ's competitive achievement orientation, can produce a person who is working very hard to look successful rather than to build something genuinely meaningful. Learning to distinguish between those two motivations is important ongoing work for this combination. In relationships, the ENTJ Libra is probably the most thoughtful and relationally considerate version of this type. Libra's orientation toward partnership and fairness softens the ENTJ's tendency to run every interaction like a project. They're better at seeing the other person's perspective than most other ENTJ combinations. But they still need intellectual respect and a certain level of ambition in a partner. Someone who doesn't take their goals seriously will struggle to hold their attention. Now, let's get to Aquarius. Aquarius covers people born roughly between late January and late February. It's associated with innovation, independence, unconventional thinking, and a strong orientation toward the future and toward collective change. Aquarius energy doesn't follow established paths for the sake of tradition. It looks at what exists, identifies what's broken or outdated, and generates ideas for what could be built instead. The ENTJ Aquarius is the most visionary and potentially the most transformative version of this combination. The ENTJ's strategic capacity gets paired with Aquarius' ability to think genuinely outside existing frameworks. This isn't just an incremental improvement type. This is the combination that looks at an entire system, whether that's a business, an institution, a social structure, or an industry, and asks what would this look like if we built it from scratch with better assumptions? This version also tends to be the most emotionally detached of the three air combinations. Both ENTJ and Aquarius are oriented toward logic and principle rather than sentiment. And while that detachment allows for very clear, objective thinking, it can create real distance in relationships and in leadership. The ENTJ Aquarius may care deeply about humanity in the abstract while being significantly less attuned to the individual humans directly in front of them. They're also the most resistant to authority for its own sake. They respect expertise and demonstrated competence. But institutional authority, hierarchy without merit, tradition without logic. These things don't automatically command their deference. And in environments where compliance is expected without justification, this combination can be genuinely disruptive in ways that aren't always welcome even when they're correct. Their strength in innovation comes with a specific challenge around execution. The Aquarius energy is most excited at the beginning, when the idea is still open and the possibilities are unlimited. The grinding, incremental work of actually building something from that idea is less naturally engaging. The ENTJ's discipline and goal orientation helps compensate for this, but it doesn't eliminate it entirely. In relationships, the ENTJ Aquarius is the most independent and the most likely to need significant personal freedom to function well. They're not well suited to relationships with heavy dependency dynamics or strong expectations of constant togetherness. They need a partner who has their own full life, their own goals, and their own intellectual interests. A relationship that engages their mind and respects their independence simultaneously. Looking at all three air sign combinations together, the shared quality that defines them all is the primacy of the mind. This is the least emotionally led version of the ENTJ type. All three of these combinations process the world primarily through thought, analysis, language, and ideas. They build things with their intelligence as the primary tool. And they're naturally effective in any domain where ideas and communication are the currency. They all also share a specific vulnerability around the emotional dimension of life and relationships. Not because they don't feel things, but because they've learned to intellectualize feelings rather than simply experience them. When they're sad, they analyze the sadness. When they're lonely, they generate a plan for addressing it. And while that intellectual approach to emotional experience can be useful, it also means they sometimes miss the actual experience of just feeling something and sitting with it without immediately converting it into something to be solved. The growth path for all three of these combinations involves learning that emotional intelligence and strategic intelligence aren't opposites. That being genuinely effective in the long run requires being able to connect with people, not just manage them. And that the most transformative leaders aren't just the ones with the best ideas. They're the ones who can make other people feel genuinely seen and valued while also building something extraordinary. Before I close, I'd love to hear from you. If you're an ENTJ and one of the air signs, does this description feel accurate to how you experience leadership and social situations? And what's the thing about your own combination that people around you most consistently misunderstand? Drop it in the comments because these conversations always add something that the research alone can't capture. Thank you so much for spending a part of your day with me here at Jhonna, Unfiltered. For those of you who are new to this space, I want to share a little bit about what I'm building here. This channel is my personal and learning diary. I am an ESL tutor and a solo dweller in the Philippines, living a life fueled by curiosity. Whether I'm researching the hidden traits of animals, diving into the mysteries of the natural world, or exploring the deep threads that connect Filipino, Japanese, and Korean cultures, this is where I document my journey. I believe that as technology and the world grow more advanced, our minds should grow right along with them. I use this text-to-speech voice to tell my stories for a very practical reason. As a full-time teacher, I have to be incredibly careful with my vocal cords. Managing vocal nodules means I must save my voice for my students in the classroom, but I refuse to let that silence my creativity. Using these digital tools allows me to share my research and my life with you while protecting my health. On this channel, there are no fixed themes and no performances, just honest documentation. From insights gathered in my global classroom to my experiences crafting a solo retirement lifestyle on my own terms, this is my way of staying productive and moving forward. I am currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers, so I can turn this passion into a sustainable future for myself and my pets. If you found something meaningful in today's video, please consider subscribing to help me reach that milestone. Your support, whether it's a comment or a view, truly helps me keep the depressing thoughts at bay and keeps my focus on building something beautiful. If you'd like to support my journey even more, you can check out the buy a treat for my pets link in the description. Shiro and the rest of the pack send their thanks. Thank you for being a part of this journey. I'm Jhonna, and I'll see you in the next one.